Enhance live.
Is there a winter dip in enthusiast auction prices on platforms like Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, MB Marketplace, Haggerty Market? Is the winter time? Are there winter doldrums when it comes to car prices, or is everything collapsing? I don't know. Let's find out on Bid Nerds tonight. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your daily YouTube car game show where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds. All right, I think we're actually live. Sorry, everybody. We were trying to get started on time, but the technical gremlins keep coming after us. It's all good. Thanks for hanging out and waiting for this new episode of Bid Nerds. We are talking about all kinds of stuff when it comes to Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, Haggerty, and more. My name is John Polnik. We're coming to you live from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner. Is he actually here today? Let's find out.
Yeah.
There he is. Michael Deeb, welcome back.
On our live, I'm just typing to Chris Carbine so he can go live with us because it's a little tricky. You have to refresh your YouTube page and then click on our old live show that looks like it's already in the can. But anyway, whatever. Who gives
No,
a rat's
actually,
ass?
that's not actually true at all.
Well, it says live on the old one. Yeah.
No, that's a new one that we just created. So I deleted the old one and created a new one. So what they need to do is refresh. Yeah. So maybe I should go live. I'm going to go live on Instagram real quick.
Yeah.
And just let everybody know. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. Let's go live.
But we do have the herd. The herd
is coming in. All right.
That's fine. Let's just roll with it.
Why don't you tell everyone about God and Porsche and God and Classic real quick while I.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. So, Bid Nerds is brought to you by our title sponsor, Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Godden Porsche was the very first classic partner in North America, and as such, the people in Germany found it in their best interest to vet all of the nearly 200 Porsche stores in North America and decided that Godden Porsche was the one that they could launch the classic program with. So if you are looking for classic parts from Porsche, OEM parts, if you're looking for service for your classic Porsche, or if you're looking to buy or sell a classic Porsche, make sure you call Godden Porsche in Las Vegas and tell them that the Bid Nerds sent you. JP, was that enough time, or do you want me to keep talking?
No, that was good. We're good. All right. Yeah.
Howard Smith. I got commercials for days.
Man, Smiths, if your Swiss watch was working like it probably should because you had it serviced at Smiths, you were probably going, I think you guys were supposed to go live at 6:30, and here it is, 6:45. You know what it is. We just wanted to try to catch the end of the Chiefs Bills game that's probably going on. I'm surprised anyone's watching, really. I was like, no one's going to watch this thing. Everyone's watching the football game. I was walking through the El Cortez on my way over here to the studio, and there, of course, the place was just packed. I was like, man, I should have walked around. I usually try to cut through the casino to get here faster. Totally dumb idea on my part this time.
Any other Sunday night except when it's the NFL playoffs.
Right.
And the Bills and the Chiefs are just going to, they're going to find out which one of them gets to lose to the Ravens, who are ultimately going to play my 49ers in the Super Bowl. So I'm very excited about that.
And I want to throw this out there because I'm a little annoyed, and this is my thing. It's not that the 49ers didn't earn it because that was a great game. I was just really excited about having the city full of Green Bay fans versus more friggin' Californians. Do not need 49ers fans. Would love all the Green Bay fans to show up here for the Super Bowl, but now they're not coming.
Oh,
yeah.
That's pretty funny. There wasn't a minute during that game that I thought the 49ers were going to win until the last play of the game, and then it was like, oh, we are going to win. But they pulled it out, so we got lucky. JP, I should come out for the Super Bowl. I could go to the Super Bowl and then walk over to the studio right after. I'm sure I'll be sober, and then we could do the show right after the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be fun?
I mean, you'd be really depressed, though.
Oh, ouch. Ouch! You think my Niners are not going to win the Super Bowl? Is this become a gambling site?
Let's.
You
stop.
just admitted you didn't think your Niners were going to beat the Packers until the last.
Oh,
minute.
absolutely. No, they played like shit. Yeah, it was terrible. But anyway, whatever. Moving on.
All right, moving on from NFL. This is a whole different sport. If you like gambling, if you like playing games, we've got the best game in town, even though it's the NFL championship games tonight. We are making predictions on bringing trailer cars and auction cars, and it's like The Price is Right, only with cars. Last Wednesday, or no, I guess it was Sunday. What day is today? Today's Sunday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, last Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm losing track of what day it is. We made predictions on the last episode, and so we always start the new episode off by reconciling our predictions. Mm-hmm. We had Ian and Michael O'Neill from Wrench were here. What's Ian's podcast, Mental?
Apex Adjacent.
Very nice guy. He was sitting across from me. He made some good bids. Let's get to reconciling our predictions. Yeah, go for it, Michael Deeb.
Mental, if you are Apex Adjacent, does that mean you are technically off the racing line?
The racing line is a flexible concept depending on what's happening on the track. The point being with those guys is they're in the neighborhood. And I actually took Ian after that Friday. We went down the street to one of the outdoor go-kart tracks here, and both of us had never seen that track for the first time. And like he always does, he beat me by like half a second. And I had to go to work. He had a later flight, so he hung out there and he knocked another 2 seconds off his time. So yes, Ian is pretty adjacent to an Apex when it comes to that sort of thing.
Just letting everyone know on Instagram that we're actually successfully live on YouTube. So I'm going to kill the Instagram feed. We're live on YouTube. Go to YouTube, Bid Nerds on YouTube, and watch us there. So.
Hey, Ryan's already on there asking how he can get one of those cool hats, JP.
Yeah, wouldn't you like to know, Ryan? No, that's a good question. Message Guys Customs. Either on Etsy or on Instagram, and tell the artist that you want one. We don't have them listed on the Etsy page just yet, but we will by the next episode. I promise by the next episode we will have these hats listed by then. And so the first batch are going to be very limited edition. The first batch, you'll be able to order them with your name on them and stuff. So look for that by the next episode. So I guess that's going to be Wednesday's episode.
Sick swag. I can't wait to see it. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be super dope. So check for that very soon. All right, let's get to the bids. What were our bids? What's the first car that we had on the list? Now, Michael Deeb, you weren't here, but you were homesick.
I was ghosting, but I was following along, and you guys did a really good job introducing the car. I'm particularly proud of Michael O'Neill because he did mention and hammer home something that I was burning for you guys to say, which is that this particular 1981 Renault R5 Turbo that was on Bring a Trailer was in fact a Turbo 1, meaning this is one of the early series cars, and these cars were alloy body. So they were several hundred pounds lighter than an already ridiculously light car. These motors are not particularly big. They're only 1,400 cc's, but with the turbo and the fact that these early aluminum body cars are probably less than 2,000 pounds, that 140 to 150, and then they had upgrades in Europe. I can't remember what it was called, but there was like a rally package upgrade that brought horsepower to like 160 horsepower. These things back in the day were fast and got out of their own way. I mean, really neat cars. The construction of these cars is like a supercar that was left in the dryer too long. Independent suspension, limited slip differential, 5-speed manual transmission, disc brakes all around, mid-engine configuration. On paper, you would think this car was like a legitimate $1 million supercar, but instead, this was a homologation special for Renault to sell the Le Car and get this car, into the collective consciousness by winning races in the World Rally Championship in the early 80s, when that was, the way NASCAR operated here. The whole win on Sunday and sell on Monday. Every manufacturer in Europe was trying to do the same thing, but they used the World Rally Championship as their playground. So this particular car looked pretty nice. It's worth mentioning that this car had run in November of last year, where it was bid to $140,000 and failed to sell there on just 13 bids. So the car came back to bring a trailer now, just what are we calling this, JP? Like 3 months later, less than 3 months later. And this time it was running at no reserve. So with that in mind, although I didn't declare my bid, I wrote down in the sheets $159,000. JP came in way under me at 130, stating that he didn't think so quickly after it had run on the previous BAT listing that it would make the mark that it had hit previously at 140. So he came in at 130, much lower, much under that. Ian, impressed with the car and claiming that he really didn't know much about these, went $200,000 all in. Michael O'Neill was at $150,000. And then ultimately, Mental came in between O'Neill and Ian at $180,000. Again, this car ran at no reserve. Mental, do we have the bids from the herd up yet?
Right there. We had Randy at 157,
thank you,
Anthony
Randy.
152.5, Chris was 1689, Michael 159, Fam Guy 200K, Sergeant Thomas 175, Jim 167.546, Chris 147.75, Tom A 162.50, Gerd 161.50, and V12 at 171.
Look at that, JP. The lowest bid there is 152. And you got bids all the way up to 200 grand at the herd. So everybody really liked that car. And I actually think those numbers make a lot of sense if this car didn't just run in November. In other words, if it was running no reserve here for the first time, I think those numbers would have been in play. But JP, you said something really interesting, which was you didn't think it would return to its old mark. It did, but only just. So after 44 bids, the hammer fell and it sold for $143,500. Technically, John, I think you had the right strategy, but Michael O'Neill had the closest bid, so he's the one that won that one. But your train of thought was right on point. What do you think of that result? Remember now, it was 140 2 months ago. It went to 143.5 and sold. How do you read the tea leaves on that? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting how, we've seen this a number of times lately where there's been a second bite at the apple, and the second bite seems to have done better almost every single time. Like we saw it with Shoddy's car where his barely got to 90 the first time around, and the next time around it got to $160. Yeah, I mean, it was like, whoa, this time around, yeah, okay, they made another $3,000, but you gotta, in the middle of winter, I don't know why they bothered to come back so soon at that point. Unless they really needed the money. Now, this car, I believe, was being sold by a dealership, so dealers don't like to have cars sitting there that ties up their money and keeps them from being able to, it's an opportunity cost the longer money is tied up on a single car. So, okay, great. They made a couple of $1,000s more here the second time around. But honestly, the fact that it did better in January, when, let's face it, there is a dip. There's always a January dip. Everyone's talking about the end of the world right now with car prices, but enthusiast car prices really aren't dropping all that much. Yes, regular cars, if you're trying to sell a CRV or a Hyundai Telluride or something like that at a dealership, it's always going to be crappy in January. People have just been back to work for a couple of weeks. They're making up for all the money that they spent in the holidays. They're not going to be in the money till probably next month. People are going to start getting their, a lot of people in the used car market, they wind up getting their IRS, refund check. And then they'll use that as a down payment on a car. But this isn't the type of car that falls into that category. This is a car that falls into the category of someone that wants something special like this, but isn't really thinking about it till the weather's getting better. There's half the country is in a deep freeze right now, or at least was for most of last week when this car closed. And who the hell's thinking about buying a $200,000, super rare weirdo rally car? So, if this were at Amelia Island in just a month from now, Michael?
Yeah,
When, in Florida, you go down there and you've got your shorts on, you're from Connecticut or something like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's nice down here. You start thinking that spring is right around the corner. Then you go back to the cold part of the country where you're from. You're like, oh crap, it's not. But, at least people start thinking about spring. It's nowhere even close to spring. Winter just started. I mean, it's not even Super Bowl yet. So yeah, I think it was, I think if the dealer could have hung on to this car and paid the VIG for another, month or two, they would have come out. I think they left tens of thousands of dollars on the table. If they would have tried to sell this thing in March, this thing definitely would have been up there, $150, $160, maybe even closer to 200. What do you think, Mental?
Oof, tough call. And I can't argue with your logic. I was hoping that this car was so unique and rare that it operated outside of those normal confines, but apparently no. And I'm hoping whoever bought it isn't planning on just like throwing it up a third time. I hope they're actually going to plan on enjoying it a little bit.
Yeah, what do you guys think of the results of this incredibly rare Renault Le Car? This is not just an average Le Car. This is quite the special car. Do you guys think that the seller should have waited till after the winter? Should they waited till spring and made the real money? Or were they a smart dealer doing the prudent thing, getting that cash flow back into their system so they can maybe buy 2, 3, 4 more cars and make that extra $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 that they left on the table sooner and get that capital back to work? Let us know in the comments below. The Nerd Herd always seems to know. The Nerd Herd is hanging out. We got a bunch of you hanging out tonight. Of course, the usual suspects. We got Anthony from Our Smiths. We've got Randy. Those guys are the Idahoans. The Idahoans.
Potato
Idaho
Mafia.
Nerd, the
Is that the right
Mafia?
way to say that?
They're going to have to tell us.
Right way?
Idaho something or another. You guys are going to have to do it.
I live in Marin, and when you're from here, you're a Marinite.
It's getting a little, I don't know, it's getting a little spicy in the comment section. They're talking about like killing each other and
No. They were talking about that was they said the Renault was a red resale coffin is what Chris Carbine.
Very nice.
And our man Anthony said, you're assuming it will run long enough to kill you.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think that this was an opportunity to buy the dip. I think someone could have swooped up if they had the money there. This is definitely something that 2, 3, 4 months, they're definitely going to get a great return on this car.
Spud Syndicate. I'm sorry. That's what they like to be
Syndicate,
called up
very
there.
nice. Love the Spud Syndicate.
Oh, man.
Now, that doesn't mean we don't love the rest of the Nerd Herd. The rest of the Nerd Herd's hanging out, too. You guys rocking it. Of course, Chris Carbine down in Louisiana, Narlands. Lee Patet, local boy, hanging out. David Van. Who else is Ryan? And Buddha's hanging out. Right on, Buddha. What's up, man?
We have a potato gumbo with sliced kiwi on it. I like that.
And we've got a new listener right here, George Condor.
What's up, Condor? Thanks for joining the Nerd Herd, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
Dr. John
George.
504. And man, we're all having a good time tonight. All right.
George is going to need an antacid after trying to digest this show. Poor guy.
All right. What's the next car that we made a prediction on in the last episode?
All right, JP. I selected for us the 2007 RUF RT12 Coupe that showed up on Cars and Bids as a featured car, which was a really interesting car. When people talk about the RUF cars, I always think about the early air-cooled cars. I am a lot less familiar with the cars that featured the Metzger engine like this one did. When I look at that front end, it reminds me of what they did to some of the Caymans that more recently. But to see this generation, this era of RUF car, it seems like a lot of the details on it are kind of new to my eyes, like those really unique air inlets in the back. Fenders, the rear quarter panels are really interesting. It's got a raised spoiler. There's some aftermarket wheels here, and then a really far extended deep front chin spoiler. This is a very interesting car. To me, JP, honestly, if you saw this car on the road, would you just look at it and go, ooh, there's a RUF? Or would you think there was a car with like a RUF logo on it and not believe that it was real? This car would have fooled me all the way down to a conversation with the driver. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I mean, look at those, the holes in the fenders are what do it on the rear haunches. That's tough to fake. I mean, you are not the ones on the back, the ones on the top of the fender there. Mental, can you get the picture? Yeah. You can't see them from that angle. There you go. You can kind of see them where the wind. Yeah, those intakes on the back. That would be an incredibly expensive mod to do to a regular old business. 996 to make it look good.
Serious business. JP, you had mentioned when you were introducing the car that the Metzger engine in this was sourced from a 996.
Correct.
Which is really interesting. You would think that it would have had the 997 turbo motor, but anyway, here we go. Our car was in Dallas, Texas, showing 31,500 miles, and this car features a modified turbo Metzger flat six that puts out 650 horsepower through a 6-speed manual transmission. So this is serious kit here for this car. With all that in mind, I went with $380,000 thinking that this car might not go much further than where it was at while it was listed. JP came in at $450,000. Ian said $325,000, which was under me. Michael O'Neill said $539,400, which was over John. And then Mental came in at $389,500, which split the difference between me and JP. So 5 bids on the table. But what I thought was really interesting, JP, if you remember, the herd was all over the place from like not another bid all the way up to like 900,000. Wasn't do we have the things Mental to look?
I don't see one for 9, but it looks like Randy was at 601.
601?
Yeah. You know, Anthony was at 426. Buddha was at 500. Family Guy 600. Yeah,
I think Michael O'Neill was saying that he saw one sell at auction that went for like nearly $1 million. That was also this era, which then really threw me off because at that point, then I thought I had hung myself out with my bid. I said maybe this car is going to go for a lot more than I thought. Turned out not to be true. Our car sold, JP. Actually, our car failed to sell on 17 bids at $380,012, meaning I missed a Yahtzee by $12.
Jeez.
How funny is that?
You wouldn't have gotten it anyway because you weren't actually in studio. I don't know if we can give you a Yahtzee from your sick bed.
But my bid was in before all of you guys. So I definitely deserve a Yahtzee because I put my bid in before I even got to hear what everybody else had to say. JP, car failed to sell. First thing we have to look at, and we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't. Was this car on the wrong platform?
I don't think this is a platform problem. I think just like I said in the last segment, I think it's just a dip. I think it's just the time of year. I think it's just, would it have been better off? I guess the question really is, what do you think the reserve was? And then we can start to say, all right, do you think it would have been done better on cars or on BAT or even PCAR market? I don't think that Cars and Bids would have been my choice for sure. But I mean, we've seen Cars and Bids get some big numbers. If this guy had $600,000, reserve, then maybe BAT would have been his place, but they probably wouldn't have given it to him this time of year. PCAR market, I definitely would not have trusted this car for PCAR market, even though we've seen them pull some pretty big numbers for some crazy rare cars. This definitely qualifies as a weird Porsche. And Doug DeMiro is known for the weird stuff. And this car is going to get a lot more visibility within that particular audience than it would being buried on a BAT day where there's a lot more people, there's a lot more eyeballs, but there's a lot more stuff to look at. I don't know. Mental, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the assessment. I still say that this was the correct platform. And as your point to BAT, a lot more eyeballs on BAT, but I would argue that there's a greater percentage of buyers on Cars and Bids. Maybe not at this realm, but people go to Cars and Bids because they actually want to get something weird and interesting. And this definitely, as you said, checks all the boxes. I'm going to go with, it's a seasonal thing. Ross put in the comments just a second ago that if this had hit 450, he thinks it would have sold. I tend to agree.
Yeah, I mean the reserve price is really the big thing on a car like this. And if it were like, I mean, everyone in the herd was pretty much higher than us, right? I mean, there were very few people that were lower than us, and knowing that one of these has hit almost 1 million in the past, I mean, there's a lot of cars that have been really crazy, but supercars are definitely taking a hit. Here's a question for you guys and for the nerd herd too: does this constitute a blue chip Porsche? Because blue chip stuff, when it comes to Porsche and when it comes to most of the marques, blue chip cars are what's still bringing bigger money. Does RUF qualify for that? It does have a RUF VIN, so this isn't just a 996 that's been done up with a bunch of RUF stuff. What do you think, Deeb?
It's so hard. Just in the last 10 years, JP, the value on RUF cars, the older vintage RUF cars, has gone through the roof. And so now, G body and 964 and 993.
Well, hold on. Did you just say it went through the roof?
Oh, yeah, I did. Freudian slip. I'm a comic and I don't even know it. But yeah, they did. They went. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. You took my line away. Sorry about that pun. But yeah, they have gone crazy in value, and we're seeing cars, especially the turbocharged cars from those earlier air-cooled generations, regularly bring $1 million. This car, I couldn't tell you anything about. I went to try and check values really quickly just to see if I could find any comps for a Metzger powered RUF car. And it was very difficult to find values. Indeed, there's no categories in any of the listing guides for the RUF cars. So by that rationale, they're so niche, they almost don't qualify. They're almost too garagiste, too much. They're too artisan, too boutique. There's not enough numbers of them to really have good valuation guides. So John, I don't really, it's hard to give you an answer. I don't know what to say. Like, I want to give you a concrete answer. I don't think I can. So I would just say, no, I don't think this qualifies. I just think this is a little bit like the Flying Hawaiians. If you wanted a maxed out white Metzger car, you could buy that. And you had like an unlimited, like a blank check, you could buy this RUF. But otherwise, who else does this appeal to? It's almost too niche. So I think supercars have a broad appeal for a bunch of people that don't own them. I don't know that I could say the same thing about this car.
I don't know if I could put this in the same category as Flying Hawaiian. I mean, we love Dave, but this isn't a one-off, this isn't a resto mod. What's that? Yeah, but it's got it as a VIN number. It's built by RUF. Flying Hawaiian takes an old car and hacks it up and makes it a new thing, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Anthony is like, hey, RUF is more blue chip than Singer. I tend to agree generally. But I do agree with you actually that this is obviously a very niche car. Here's the thing.
By all those arguments, then this car was on the second biggest platform in the country and failed to make $400,000. And some of us think that this car might be worth $500,000 or $600,000. So I understand what you're saying, but I feel like the proof is in the pudding. I just think this is a hacked up 911. We're not even sure if the donor car was a turbo.
It's not a donor car. I mean, it's original factory car from RUF. It's not like they buy a 50,000 mile car and rebuild it. They get a brand spanking new car from Porsche and build it, and that's why it gets a VIN.
Right, but did this car start life as a Carrera, as a Carrera 4, or as a turbo donor car? And then they went and lifted an engine from a different generation car.
Yeah, but that's what they do with all the RUFs. Okay. I guess. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't see this being something considered this is a factory car. This is a factory RUF car. But it's not that I'm necessarily disagreeing with you, Deeb, in the sense that I think I agree with you. This is crazy rare, crazy niche. But the idea that it was just like a hacked up car. I mean, Singer takes an old car and hacks it up and makes it something new and special. RUF doesn't take an old car and hack it up and make it something special. It takes a brand new car, a brand new powertrain, brand new everything, not just components, but everything. So no.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's cool, but like, JP, when we talk about 944s, they'll never be expensive cars because they're not expensive driving experience. this is supposed to be a $500,000 car. The performance envelope is there. But if you sit in the driver's seat of this car, do you feel like you're in a $500,000 car? Or you feel like you're in a $50,000 Carrera? This car isn't doing it for me. And I don't know how to explain that to you other than the way I just did, you know?
Yeah, that's like saying if you got into a 996 GT2, does that feel like a $50,000 car because it looks like a 996 turbo?
I'm going to jump in here and say that where you guys are dancing around is the crux of the problem. Is JP, as a deep Porsche file, you know exactly what this car signifies. And while Deeb, who loves all cars, recognizes that while it's special, he's not getting a $400,000 experience or a $500,000 experience sitting behind the wheel of the car. And there weren't enough buyers out there who think like JP and too many of them who think like Deeb, and the car didn't sell.
Okay, now you're both crazy because look, this is absolutely a $500,000 buyer experience. You get in this car. I mean, from a performance point of view, from a touch point of view, everything about this car says $500,000
says
supercar.
Absolutely, but does the world know that?
Yes, I think it's just the dip. I think when this car comes back to market, which platform will it go to? Will it go to PCAR market? Will it go PCAR? Yeah, you think it'll go to P? You don't think it'll go to BaT?
It's going to end up in the chum bucket for $750,000.
Exactly, it should go to BaT. But if I was a betting man, and we do a show like that,
sure,
I would bet that we would see this car in PCAR market. JP, when we talk about like Singer hacking old cars up, but when you sit in a Singer, you feel like you're in, you're like in Nirvana.
Same thing with a roof.
No, that's what I'm saying. Look at the driver's seat in this car. There is nothing behind this. But when you're sitting in that seat, there's nothing that lets you know you're in a $500,000 car until you hit the throttle. And they did the gauges and everything, and it's just, but to me, it's not enough to endorse the value that they're expecting here. And that's why I think it just, to me, looking at it, it looks like a modified turbo or even a Carrera.
Well, what do you guys think in the comments below? Should the seller have taken the money and run, or do you think they're better off to try a different platform maybe in the spring? And if so, how much more money do you think this thing will bring on a different platform? Do you think it'll bring $100,000, just $50,000? $500,000 more? Do you agree with Deeb that it's just a hacked up 996? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. Deeb, what does Deeb know from 911s? He's not, according to Mental, he's not really a Porsche file, and I guess I finally agree with Mental on something. So let us know in the comments below.
By the way, you Porsche files, a 2007 donor car is a 997, not a 996. It just happens to have a 996 motor.
Yeah, because they wanted a Metzger motor, so that's what they. What are we talking? We're still talking about this. Yes, we talked about all that stuff. Well, if you want to hear the same conversation, you can just go back and listen to what we were just talking about again out there in the Nerd Herd. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, what was the next car that Michael Deeb doesn't know anything about?
Absolutely. So I selected this car thinking I was going to be on the show, and then I was not able to make it on the show. So I really appreciate you guys covering the 1971 Ford Ranchero GT that I was representing on Hagerty Marketplace. This car was brought to market by the granddaughter of the original owner of this car here in the Bay Area. 1971 Ford Ranchero GT. Powered by a 351 Cleveland with a factory 4-barrel option that brought horsepower from 240 all the way up to 285 horsepower, making this car arguably fun to drive. The car is in very dry, very original condition. Although not perfect, this car spent almost its entire life in a garage, and it still wears most of its original paint. So super neat car. I brought it to market. It's running no reserve. And I was really interested to see what you guys would say and see if we could give this car some love, which we did. With that in mind, I did not bid because I think there'll be like a big conflict of interest. JP started the bidding at $11,552, at which point I started commenting in the comments that he was a cheap pup because I was so pissed. I wanted you guys to say $25,000, $30,000 to help my client get a couple of extra bucks. Ian came in at $14,500. Thank you, Ian. Love you for that. And then Michael O'Neill said $11,575. And Mental came in. Mental, do me a favor, will you? $10,500.
If I'm not mistaken, I said I wanted it to be a $20,000 car.
So bid like that. Bid with, sometimes you got to bid with your heart. My God, throw me a bone, will you? Now I know how Solomon felt. Poor guy. What I was pleased was that a lot of the herd's bids, although not in the 20s, were all a lot higher than the median bid of you guys. 2 of you at 11 and 1 of you at 10. A lot of the herd came in at $14,000, $15,000, and $16,000. I think was one of the high bids, if I'm not mistaken. With all of that in mind, our car ran at no reserve. It sold on 30 bids at $15,105. The estimate range that I provided to the client was in the $16,000 to $18,000 range. And at $15,105, I do feel like she basically got all the money for this car. And I was happy for her that it made that. The bidding increments, I don't think anybody really followed this one, but it got up to about $13,000. And a guy who I had talked to on the phone at length about the car finally came in and bid, and so he took it from $13,000 with a bid of $15,105, adding $2,105 to the pot, and that was the knockout punch. JP, he won it on that bid, and it closed at that point. So very happy, very grateful. Thank you guys for indulging in me, and it was actually kind of fun to listen to you guys talk about an old muscle car. I like what Michael O'Neill said about, or was it Ian saying this is the type of car you'd want to get fingered in or something like that? I thought that was really, do you remember that? That was really funny.
At the drive-in, absolutely.
Yeah.
At the drive-in, yeah, absolutely. So whether you have or haven't been fingered in a Ford Ranchero GT, I was really happy with the way it turned out. So JP, at $15,000, and the studio thought it was going to be under 12. Are you surprised by that number, or what do you think? Like, how do you read that result?
I mean, definitely congrats to the seller and to you for getting more than $5,000 for this thing. I mean, it's neat and it's nostalgic, but holy cow, do you got to find the right person that actually wants this. I'm from the era and I don't even want this thing. I mean, this thing, is it nostalgic? Yeah. Is it this nostalgia that I want to relive? No, there's certain things about the past that I'm good that are in the past. This is not one of the things that I want to bring with me into the future. We made it through the 70s. We don't want to keep living in them. And this car it's just not something I want to spend any time in. Do I appreciate that it exists? Yeah. But I would like this car. If this car were like at a car show or whatever, it'd be cool to sit in it and, look at it for a minute, but that's enough. Past that, I don't need to drive one. I certainly don't need to plop any money down for it. If I had unlimited amounts of money and I had that warehouse where I was going to fill it up full of all kinds of old classic cars that, brought me back, this is not a car that would be on the list, even if I had a bajillion dollars. It's just, and someone's like, hey, you want this thing? I'd be like, no, I don't.
I'm good.
Thanks.
I'm good.
When I had my first car, I was such a prick little kid. I was like 15 or whatever, and the neighbor offered, I think it was like a Caprice Classic that looked like, obviously it's nothing like this because it was a Chevy, but it was just like this because it was the same color or the green equivalent of this pile of crap.
It weighed the same. Yeah.
Exactly. It was a zip code. It was just probably, it was just like, and they're like, you can have this car. And I'm just like, I don't even have a car. I don't even have my license yet. And I'm just like turning my nose. What an asshole of a little kid I was, right? Saying no to a free car back in the 80s. I mean, what an a-hole.
Mental, is that not the most JP story you've ever heard?
I've never heard that. I've never heard that story yet. I am not shocked at all. Not remotely.
I have had the pleasure of knowing him for 7 years, and that might be the best JP story I've ever heard.
Wow, I guess I've been holding out.
15-year-old kid that turned his nose at a free muscle car. That is awesome.
Can you imagine? I mean, I know that my dad's friend and probably him and all his friends are like, can you believe Polnik's kid? I offered him this car. It runs and drives. A little prick doesn't want it. I offered it to, like, he can have the thing. He's like, nah, I'm
take it
the
off
school
my
bus. Jeez.
I've got a skateboard.
Well, and I'm gonna go. My thing is, if so many people drive trucks these days and they don't use them as trucks, and they're spending $50,000 on a truck that they don't need. This is going to get you a lot more respect than a Dodge Ram 1500 with 20-inch wheels. And I will die on that hill.
Another car would be like, I'm good. You can keep it. I don't want your Dodge fill in the blank anything. All right. Well, what did the Nerd Herd think of this? I mean,
the Nerd Herd was with us. They liked it, but a lot of them are like, it's awesome. And Deeb did a fantastic job of finding the very, very niche market of people that wanted to buy it, but not all of them wanted to own it.
My brother, Michael Deeb, what does that say about your platform over there in Haggerty in the audience?
We are so domestic heavy. It scares me. I mean, first of all, you
are strong with the boomers, right? I mean,
I apparently, yeah. I got some pleated pants coming in the mail, but some khakis. But dude, I don't know anything about American cars. Like everything I just spewed, I had to learn about this car after I got it. And I've got another one right around the corner. I've got a 1970 Dodge Challenger with a 440 that they added a 6-pack to after it was delivered. And JP,
wait, keep talking about the Dodge Challenger. I'm listening. Keep going.
Yeah. JP, you're going to crack up. It's the exact same colorway as this car. It's yellow. It's like a pastel yellow, a banana yellow with a black interior and an automatic transmission. And that's my next car that's going to run. I think that car drops on Tuesday. And I'm terrified. I don't know anything about it. Like I gotta learn all this stuff and make sure it's legit. So
just keep watching Vanishing Point until it makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wish it was as cool as that car. And I did watch that movie, but I just don't know these cars, but we are, we insure more Corvettes, more Mustangs, and more Camaros than anything else. Porsche is the fourth thing that we I'm sure 911. Porsche is the fourth mark that we really insure the most of. But as such, we are domestic heavy in the auction. The auction is following suit to our normal insured sort of numbers. So we are very domestic heavy. I kind of, at times, even though it says Haggerty, I feel like I work for Hemmings. You know what I mean?
Well, let us know what you guys think about this baby-ish yellow Ranchero. Did Deeb do his job, at least for Haggerty? Even though he wasn't doing his job here on Bid Nerds, did he knock it out of the park with this one? Or should they have taken it to a different platform? Would they have been able to fill up that bed with rolls of cash? Or was this just, that was the best you could possibly do? Let us know in the comments below. All right, we made one other prediction on the last episode. What was that car? Michael Deeb, tee it up.
JP, I picked this car for you, and I'm tickled that you guys all enjoyed covering it so much because we've done so many pickup trucks. But I found this 1985 Toyota 4Runner, 4-wheel drive with a 5-speed manual, and like some of those Toyota pickup trucks that we've seen recently, this one looked to be in really nice condition. It had the all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and it had the 5-speed manual. And seemed to have even reasonable miles at just 81,000 on the clock. 2.4 liter inline 4 dual range transfer case, and the car was down in Moreno Valley, California. This car was listed on Bring a Trailer. It did have, I think it was at like 16 grand when you guys were covering it, and it did have a reserve. The numbers came in big. I had already clicked out. I had to put the baby down. But JP started the bidding at $39,000, and it looks like JP was the high man. Ian was at 35, Michael O'Neill at 33.9, and Mental at 31.7. So you can see the trajectory of those bids. They all went down towards Mental. Our car sold on 38 bids for $27,500, coming in a couple of grand under Mental's bid. Now, JP, you said something pretty astute. You said, like, if this were similar condition and it was a pickup truck, this would be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range easy, because we've seen a few like that. But you said that you thought the fact that it was a 4Runner was actually going to hurt it, and that might hold it back. But then you still came in with a $39,000 bid. So based on the result, couple things to unpack. Do you think that the fact that it didn't hit 30 was because it was a 4Runner, or do you think it's because of the season? And the fact that it sold for under $30,000, does that surprise you? Or do you think that might have something to do with BAT forcing them to have like maybe a lower or more realistic reserve, because there's not a lot of comps to support a $40,000 4Runner per se? You know what I mean?
Yeah, in answer to your first two questions, I think both. Yes, this truck was definitely affected by seasonality. And the next question was, do I think the fact that it was a 4Runner versus being a pickup hurt it? And the answer is yes, I do. I did bid high because I was not only I was hoping that this would be the one to change it all. Because one thing we've seen some preserved trucks out there, surprisingly enough. There were so many of these. Now, we've talked about it on the last episode, how these just have the living F beaten out of them because they're so reliable. So it's hard to find a clean one. But because they also happen to make so many trucks, there are survivors out there. I feel like there are fewer 4Runner survivors because there just were no 4Runners that were tucked away for some reason. I don't know why that is. My buddy Leif from Seattle, I think he's hanging out in the Nerd Herd tonight. He's owned a couple of the later generation ones. And, you know, I think his have had hundreds of thousands of miles on them. And, you know, I think he has sold both of them. But, you know, anytime you want to sell a Toyota pickup truck or Toyota almost anything, you know, SUV, they sell instantly. You know, my father's little Yoda pickup truck, I think it was an 89. You know, I regrettably sold that thing. It had sat in the desert for way too long and I just didn't have a place to put it after he passed. But even that car on its last leg, you know, with hundreds of thousands of miles and just beat the hell, barely running, but still running. You know, I sold it to a couple of guys who literally were taking it to Guatemala. You know, which is where it probably is right now. So they run forever, but you know, I didn't get a whole ton of money for it, but I did get what I was asking for it. And I probably could easily have gotten more because there were 50,000 people that wanted it. Yeah.
I remember, JP, I talked to you through that whole process. I feel like you sold that car almost overnight. And those two guys showed up and you were like, Deeb, that car is going right back to work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole other story, right? I mean, that was
got a job. Yeah.
I think I was asking like $4,000 for it, and I had a couple, like I had a no-show, and then I had the first guy that saw it was one of those guys that was just a total jerk. He's nitpicking it all, and I'm just like, bro, it's $4,000 and it works. Yeah, but it needs this, that, and the other thing. Like, don't care, $4,000. Yeah, but I'll give you $2,000. I'm like,
I'll sell it to the next guy.
And like, there's a guy waiting at the gas station for you to leave. Do you want it for full asking price, or do you want me to let the next guy? And he's like, oh, they won't buy it. And he like drove down the block thinking that the next people were going to come and not buy it. And those next two were a couple of kids, Guatemalan kids, barely spoke English. And they were, their eyes were like saucers. They were so excited about the truck. Yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest truck ever. You know, and they're just like, and they pulled out, you know, with literally a paper bag. They had money, and it was probably, I don't know, I think they only had like $3,200. They'd been, you know, landscaping for all summer, or, you know, were busting their asses, and they needed to bring this truck back to their family, and they're like, you know, and they're offering, I'm like, yeah, go for it.
Unwrinkling the money.
Just take it. It's yours. Go for it. You know, I'm like, I don't even care how much money is in this bag. You guys deserve it. That asshole. And I just like, I took the cash and I like waved it at the guy down the street. It's sold, a-hole. Go away. So that was worth the $800 or $900 discount that I gave these guys. Cause anyways, that's a whole other story. I love this 4Runner.
Mental, that last part was the second most JP story I've ever heard. I sold it for $800 off.
You know,
just to fuck you up.
I had a friend, Dan. He was doing some remodeling on his house. He bought an old Nissan hardbody pickup. You know, just one of those $1,100 trucks. Used it for a year. Went to go sell it. You know, threw it out there. Same situation. Guy throws up tire kicker, telling him everything is wrong with his $900 truck. At the same time, a guy shows up with his 16-year-old kid, and the 16-year-old kid's like, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Would it be possible to do this? Meanwhile, the other guy's still being a jerk, and the kid looks at him and says, you know, sir, could I hold this truck with $500? And he looks square at the jerk and goes, son, you just learned something today about being polite. It's your truck for $400.
Nice.
And he looks at his dad and goes, nice job. And, you know, send him on his way.
Oh, that's great.
Winning.
I love stuff like that. Yeah, boy. I had quick story. I had an old cheap watch, just a little Ferrari watch that I had from the 90s that was sitting in a box. I put it on OfferUp. This was like probably 4 years ago or something like that. Whatever it was, Craigslist, OfferUp, Facebook, whatever. And, you know, I was literally asking $100 for it, and people were offering me like 30 or whatever. And I got so sick of all these stupid offers that this guy's like, you're not going to be able to sell it, you know, so sell it to me for $25. So I took a video of me smashing it and sent it to him.
And we have the third most JP story.
How have you guys heard these stories?
Holy mackerel. Holy mackerel. John.
I need to write my memoirs, apparently. Jeez.
I have a buddy of mine, his response to what's the lowest you will take? And his response is always, I will burn it to ash before I sell it to you. That's the lowest I will take.
That's the guy I like.
You know what I take from all these stories, Mental?
Here we go.
Rochelle deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award.
That is true.
Holy shit. That woman should be canonized for sainthood, and I'll give you the second miracle right here.
She's worse. She'll go down and like punch someone. She's like, no, I'm gonna let them come to the. I'm gonna meet them in the lobby, and I'm gonna smash it in front of them, and then throw the glass in their face. Yeah,
I respect that, JP. You're so passive aggressive. You got a black belt in passive aggression.
Come on, I came up in Seattle. That's passive aggressive is what it's about. All right, so.
The herd, by the way, is loving this. Everyone,
the show is off the rail. We haven't even covered a new car yet, and I gotta go to bed. All right, I gotta take my medicine.
What do you guys think of the results of this little Toyota pickup, or not even a pickup? This 4Runner, well bought, or was this yet another low winter dip opportunity for somebody to snag it and sell it for more in spring? Let us know in the comments below. All right, we'll be right back after this with brand new predictions. So stick around. We've got amazing cars tonight. It's going to be awesome. Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Godden. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. If you don't subscribe to Bid Nerds on YouTube right now, I'm gonna shoot this 997. If you said, wait, that's a 996, you're a nerd. So subscribe to the new YouTube channel, Bid Nerds.
Get those nerds!
Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. Our Smiths, they know what time it is, and you know what time it is. It means it is time for some predictions. All right, we have an amazing slate of cars to talk about, so let's get into it. What's the first car on the list, Michael Deeb?
I don't know. Carbine. Chris Carbine selected for us this incredible 1996 Porsche 911 Turbo that is on Bring a Trailer right now. It's a premium listing. It's been up for like 3 months. The car has just 129 miles from new. If you scroll down to the bottom of the comments, you have to refresh to get more comments. I think 3 different times, and there's still 3 days left to go. There is a ton of comments, and it is all over the place. If you have a little bit of time, you should go on there and just read some of the comments. This is unbelievable. A car like this has really pulled sort of the best and the worst of what Bring a Trailer is all about to the forefront. The very first bid on this car was $125,000. The second bid on the car and the same minute was for $300,000 when the car was listed new. All of that is to say it's very interesting. There's not been a lot of bids because the bidding already went to an astronomical number. But when Carbine sent this to me, and I looked at it and I said, oh yeah, this is going to be really juicy. We'll definitely cover this car. My knee-jerk reaction was my bid as far as like, oh my God, 129-mile brand new silver 993 turbo. That's going to be a blank value car. I will give you that when we get to our valuations, but I still think that my number is in play, however high it is. But just just extraordinary, a time capsule car. The big thing here, and I'm just going to steal Mental's take right out of the gate to keep him short-winded and do him a favor. But the problem here is nobody's going to drive this car. And when Mental sees something like that, he feels like God killed a kitten. And that's just sad. This car is going to get towed. It will not get driven. Nobody's going to put gas in this thing. I'm sure the battery's not connected. And all of that is just totally, totally sad. This car is going to wind up in a collection, and then ultimately down the road, it'll wind up in a museum for our grandkids to go, what does ice mean? And that's just kind of a bummer. But a really cool car. Our good friend Ben, the professor, calls this car the pinnacle of human achievement. And JP and I have not been able to prove him wrong. These are unbelievable cars. And despite this one going to essentially break the bank here, I don't know that, this doesn't, it's interesting, but it doesn't impress me because the guy who bought this car, whatever he made on it or is going to make on it, I doubt the guy who's selling it is the original owner. He would have had more fun driving it. And that's just kind of a bummer. It's like spend your money on vacations instead of things and make memories. And I think that analogy applies here because this car should have been driven and it wasn't. Will it bring a fortune in money? Sure. But, I've been doing this for so long. It's like big whoop. I'd much rather see one with a nice patina of stone chips on the front and somebody happily throw me the keys and go, Deeb, take it for a spin. This thing's awesome. That would impress me more than hearing that somebody paid, whatever they're going to pay for this car. So JP, very interesting. I don't know that we've seen a turbo with such low miles ever before. This car could set a new high watermark for the model. What do you think in general about all of this? It's sad, right?
I mean, just to be clear, in case you're watching this and maybe you're doing something else, like this is on in the background, and you heard my partner say 129 miles. It's not 129,000. It's 129. That's three digits on the odometer. That doesn't make any freaking sense at all. It's like, how did you bought it from the dealership? It probably had 50 miles on it, brand new, because they, drive it around from test drives and stuff like that. And then you get it home, however far away you live at home. Maybe you took it to one gas station. Maybe, 100, that's not even a tank of gas. It's like, did they drain the tank? Is the tank full of like congealed goo? Is it like napalm in there? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
So you're married to Selma Hayek. Yeah. What's it like with her? I don't know. I'm not having sex
Saving
with
her for the next guy, right?
Exactly.
But the thing is, like you said, Deeb, the next guy ain't going to have her either. It's just, he's just going to... The difference between Selma and this the car will still be the car. It's not like it's going to really age that much, but that's not entirely true either, because look, you think about when these cars sit, air-cooled cars in particular, they don't like to sit. Things go wrong with them. I remember seeing a 959 at the dealership in Seattle years ago, up on the rack when I went in there to get my own car serviced. And that car had like delivery miles. It was like 100 miles on or whatever. It still had the Cosmoline on it. Someone had just bought it, and they were kind of bringing it back to life. And it even at the time, this was probably in like 2010 or something like that. It cost $60,000 to get that car just up and running and cleaned up and everything. So this car is definitely going to have a top end rebuild. Everything's going to have to be resealed if you wanted to drive it. But let's face it, no one's going to drive this car. And that brings me to my next point, which is, if your intention was to make this a museum piece and preserve it, why is it presented like a Facebook marketplace ad? These pictures are absolutely horrible. The guy bought it brand new, drove it home, put it in the garage, and then pulled it out in his driveway and put 8% more miles on it in that 200 feet, and then snapped pictures with his iPhone 4 and then presumably rolled it back into the driveway or into the garage. what the hell, man? Spend a couple of, if you think you're going to get $1 million for a car, you need to spend, $1,000 on a photographer and actually make it look like something. This is just absurd. At least there's no dumpsters in the background. Mental, go for it.
I've just got nothing. It just makes me cry. I would argue that the 993 I'm driving right now has done more in the months that I've had it to further the Porsche community by being shared and being opened up and being talked about and being driven by people that appreciate and love these cars than this car will do in its entire life.
Absolutely. I mean, and so there it is. I mean, this car is all about predicting values. Do we think the fact that this car has so few miles is going to bring huge money? Or do you think people are going to be like, what the heck is going on? Do you guys have any flags going, wait a minute, is this right? Is this real? Has this been confirmed? Deeb, what do you
Somebody
think
did ask about the speedometer being unplugged.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. On just taking it at face value that this is legit, JP, our car doesn't close for another 3 days. It's already up to $352,000, but that's just on 7 bids. I'm looking at some comps, and on classic.com, there's a car that sold it's a red 996 Turbo that in March of 22 sold at Amelia Island at RM Sotheby's auction for $456,000 with 99 miles on it. The other high mark for a non-roof car is a 1996 911 Turbo that sold on Bring a Trailer in June of 23. So about a year and a half later, that car had 645 miles on it, and it sold for $486,000. So it went for $456 and then for $486. $30,000 more, went from 99 miles to 645 miles. It's the same car, John. Somebody bought a 99-mile car and for a year put 500 miles on it and sold it, made 30 grand. How effing hilarious is that? But those two transactions are the only comps for a basic 993 Turbo under 1,000 miles that I could find. With that in mind, our car having 129 miles, sitting at $352,000. Carfax says it is a one owner, that this is being sold by the original owner, JP, per to your analogy. I'll tell you what I told Carbine. This is a $500,000 car. My bid is $500,000 where I believe it will sell.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get there. I think it's a dip. I think that the person who owns this is expecting that, and I think they absolutely could get that if they towed this thing down to Amelia Island, if they waited till March. But if it's just not going to get there. It's January. People still aren't ready to spend the money, especially that much money. I think it's going to get to like 450, 993 in FTS. I don't think it's going to even sell at that. I think that I'm guessing the reserve is probably right around, probably above that. It's probably $500,000 if I had to guess. Mental, what do you think? Which I do have to guess. That is what the show is all about.
425, 993 fails to sell.
You think it's going to fail to sell?
Yeah, and everything we're talking about. Yeah, everything we're talking about with the dip. And it's funny because investors are like, oh, no one wants this car because it's winter. No, investors are on this, but investors don't care because it's going into a truck and it's getting shipped there. And if this had 50,000 miles and was selling for half the price, I would argue that most enthusiasts wouldn't care because they're like, oh man, cool. 993 Turbo. Hell yeah.
All-wheel drive. I'll drive it across country,
exactly.
Even if it's in New York, right?
Yeah. Even Zach Miller has joined us in the chat, and he's thinking that the miles are actually going to hurt the sale on this car because you've eliminated half the market that is interested in this car because no enthusiast is buying it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt the price. I think it's going to hurt how many people are interested.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, and just for the record, Zach is from Cars and Bids, commenting on a Bring a Trailer ad. So what is? Can you really? Is he? Saucy. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Can you believe that? I can't believe he would say something. No, I'm kidding. Zach, thanks for hanging out with us. The Nerd Herd always knows. What are the numbers from the Nerd Herd? Mental.
We've got a 425. Randy B saying 450. Buddha is saying 478. Gerd at 495. Chris Carbine is agreeing with Deeb, says 500. V12 Smooth 490. David Van says 420 and it will not sell. Chris is 465,993, fails to sell. And Anthony says it's a great Bruce Myers car, failed to sell at 465. And Kevin jumped in and said 600K.
Is there a driving or there is a start video of this thing. So there is an engine start video. Okay. So the fuel in it isn't congealed napalm, so that's good, I guess. Which I don't know how you avoid, like sitting this long. I mean, that means you would have to like every year every 5 years drain the fuel tank or something like that, or every couple of years, or what? I mean, 129 miles, something. It just. I don't know. It seems fishy. I'm sure that it would have been flushed out that if it's not real, that the listing would have been pulled, or people would be all over it in the comments below the actual listing, not our comments. But this is going to be a really interesting one to watch. All right, and tune in to our next live episode.
I do love that your analogy about the Facebook Marketplace, because he's digitizing his plate and then he put tape over it. So basically, this guy has a $500,000 car with the equivalent of his thumb blocking out the plate with his iPhone that he's trying to sell.
Yeah. This guy. I mean, he just doesn't deserve to sell this car.
Look at the clutter.
Yeah. How many?
Oh, look, he's got a Harley. There's a surprise.
Yeah, shocker. Does the boot come with all the New Balances? It does. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it does have ball sack leather. So we know there's at least one more bidder out there. Buddha, I'm looking at you. All right, my friends. Let's. What do you guys think this thing will get up to? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll find out on the next episode. All right, what's the next car we have on the list? We spent a lot of time on that one. Let's hurry it up here.
All right, JP. I found for us a 1980 BMW 528i sedan, internally known as the E12 platform. Our car is on Bring a Trailer and listed in Ventura, California, where it's showing 97,000 original miles. Powered by a 2.8-liter inline six that makes less than 200 horsepower, this car is equipped with a 5-speed manual transmission, which is interesting. John, I don't know if we've shared this before, but when I was becoming of a driving age, when I was 13, 14, 15, and then ultimately 16 and 17 years old, my dad had a 1979 528i with a 4-speed manual that was kind of a dark gray metallic, tan seats, and a black dashboard. And that car ran like a champ. And as a kid that was just learning how to drive, it was super fun when my dad would throw me the keys and go to the passenger side of the car and let me drive before I had my license. I essentially learned how to drive stick on a car very similar to this, and absolutely loved it. My dad was really good friends with a guy named Ed, who was like an officer in the Ferrari Owners Club. And we would go to all of the Ferrari, like all the monthly Ferrari Owner Club meets, and show up in my dad's BMW with all these guys that had 308s and Dinos and Mondials and a couple of Testarosas and stuff like that. It was super, super fun for me in the 80s to be with my dad and in his car and learn how to drive. A lot of all my car stuff started with a car similar to this. So I do have a soft spot in my heart for these. This one looks to be in very nice original condition. White, I would go not very far out on a limb and say, is an uncommon color for these cars. Despite it being in 1980, most of these cars were built in the 70s. And as such, there's a lot of, green and orange and purple and weird colors, weird flavors for these. So Alpine White, I think kind of makes it sort of unique. The seller makes a comment himself in the comments, and he goes on to list all the things he did in preparation for the sale. And then list, I think, essentially 3 or 4 pages of the accompanying receipt for all that service. So this car looks to be in decent cosmetic condition and seems to have had a lot of money spent on it recently to get it to be reliable and turnkey for the next owner. Look at the cocoa mats and the wooden shift handle. This car is so 80s, JP. So I send it to you. Nice car, not one that really gets very many. I think you have to be an absolute BMW fanboy or a boomer, basically, to really want something like this. But John, as you grew up near Seattle, Any experience from this era BMW? Did you drive any of the 5 Series or stuff like that? Did you have any miles behind the wheel on one of these?
I've definitely driven. Like there's a lot of BMW fans in Seattle, but not growing up, not where I grew up. You always tell these stories are coming up. Hey, my dad had Ferraris and you got to drive BMW. I learned to drive in a 71 Dodge travel van, 3 in the tree with no power steering. So yeah, it was not fun. Mental. How much time have you spent behind the wheel? One of these.
I grew up in Atlanta, so obviously these things were everywhere. You'll notice in some of the pictures they had the BMW coded alarm radio because this was the origins of the break my windows, what BMW stands for.
Still my Blaupunk.
Yeah, because these were such great cars. This was them establishing themselves as the yuppie car du jour. This was the predecessor to the much loved Sharknose 5 Series. This is a great car. I'm glad you noticed the Cocoa Mats because I look at that and I'm like, this car owned by an enthusiast.
Look at the dashboard, guys. The dashboard. How did this car survive this long with not having, indoors. Grand Canyons down? Yeah, I mean, it's just that tells you everything on a car like this.
Totally. Good eye, JP. Good eye. Totally. Me and my buddy Danny Murphy, my dad was out of town and we took the car out of my dad's garage. They had just repaved the Great Highway, which was like, JP, it's this street, this boulevard that goes all the way down the west side of the city from south to north, from the zoo to basically the Cliff House. And it's probably like 2 or 3 miles long. And they had just repaved it and opened it, but they didn't put any lights in it yet. So it was this like 3-mile long stretch of highway with no cross streets. And so Danny and I went down there in the car. I pulled onto the Great Highway on like a Tuesday night at 10 o'clock at night. There's no traffic on the road. And Danny and I looked at each other and we were going to go and see how fast my dad's car would go. And we looked at each other and we both reached and put on our seatbelts. Like we had been driving the car all night and didn't think to put our seatbelts on. And we were like, all right, well, let's see how fast this thing is. And then we went through the gears, 4 speeds. And I think I got the car up to like 130 miles an hour. But what I remember, and this is such a 3-box design, was that once we got up to like 100, 110, 120, the wind noise on the windshield was 10 times louder than the engine or the transmission or anything like that. Suddenly you couldn't hear the car. All you could hear was the wind. And having never experienced that speed before, and this is, again, I'm telling you, this was 1985 or 1986. I was 15 or 16 years old. It was the first time I had touched that speed. We were shocked at how loud it was. It was such a rush. We thought we were so cool. It was really fun. It was very much a little bit like risky business, borrowing dad's car, just not as cool a car. JP, this is a no reserve auction. It closes in 2 days. Our car is sitting at $7,101 on a pretty respectable 21 bids. This car is definitely getting some love and some action. I don't know that I believe this car is actually going to break the bank. Gosh, what would you say? I initially put 12 grand, but I think I want to add a little something to this. I really like this car and it looks like somebody else might like it too. So I'm going to put 2 grand on top of my instinct and say cerebrally that this car could touch $14,000 where it will sell. No reserve. JP?
Yeah, that's a pretty legit bid. Somebody in the Nerd Herd said that they thought the dash was cracked. I'm looking.
I think that they are also talking about how it leaks oil and all this other kind of stuff. They are falling into the trap of there's BMWs and then there's BMWs of reputation that have been neglected, and so there's a lot of tripe about what happens to neglected BMWs going on in the chat right there.
Well, yeah. So what was your bid, Deeb? Was 14 what?
14. Just 14 straight up.
14 straight up.
Now, and it's got 2 days. Yeah, it's 7,100. It's got 2 days. It's no reserve. It's going to sell 21. There's some action on it.
Yeah, will it double in a couple days? I mean, we certainly see that a lot. This car looks pretty darn nice, but I'm going to still say that the dip continues through at least until mid-February and say this thing sells for $12,528 and give it to Mental.
Ooh, that's a good bid, JP. That's a good bid.
All right. I am a fan of this car too, but it doesn't have the horsepower of the later generations. It doesn't have the appeal of the old Alpina or the Alpine, its predecessor, 4-door sedan. So unfortunately, they should have taken this one to Haggerty. This is going to go for probably, I'm going to say $12,528.
Oh, wow.
That's the same bid. That's the same bid. That's
I'm
the
sorry.
same bid as JP. Give me a different
I'm
number.
sorry. We'll go with 13,528.
Why are you stealing my bids, Mental? I'm right here.
Because you're that
I
good.
know.
I'm right here. You're trying to take my bid right out from under. You're not even like Deeb, where he's like 1,000 miles away. You're doing it right in front of my face. Wow, that's how Mental is. Okay, I see how things are. Okay, so what do you guys think this 528 will bring? Let us know in the comments below. The Nerd Herd is all over it. We got the numbers from them, and let's go ahead and move on to the next car. What do we got, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP. I think you selected this 1995 Mitsubishi 3000 GT Spyder VR-4 with a 6-speed manual, showing, just 18,000 miles out of White Bear Township, Minnesota, offered for sale by White Bear Mitsubishi. So this was either the dealer principal's car, somebody traded it in. It looks to be in very young, very decent condition. Right off the bat, I remember these cars when they came out. They were sister cars with the Dodge Stealth. And I don't have a lot of memories of the Spyder, JP. I know they made one. But like as I look at it and my eyes sort of take in the shape of it, it really feels like I'm looking at it for the first time because I probably haven't looked at a Mitsubishi 3000 Spyder in this century. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
Like it's been so long. I can't tell you how rare this car was. They probably made a boatload of them, but these cars in the Bay Area were nearly non-existent. Like we just never, like I couldn't even tell you where the Mitsubishi dealership is when I was growing up. Lots of cracks in the very soft leather, big, heavy bolstered chairs. All gray interior is so 80s. The shift handle, it almost looks like an aftermarket Momo thing, you know, even though it doesn't. It's the legit handle. It's just the shape of it and the style. Like so much of this car was meant to be performance, but so much of it just kind of came off almost pretentiously, you know. Like did anybody ever take this car seriously as a performance car when they were new? I feel like the Dodge just got a little more love, but it's probably just because the brand got a little more love, even though Dodge was in the toilet when this car came out as well. 300 horsepower, all-wheel drive. It certainly could get out of its own way, but I still feel like in 95, Ford was selling more Mustangs, and that still continues today. I don't know how long these cars went on. There was like a facelift, and I don't think the facelift made them look any prettier. JP, how hilarious is, like, if you look at the side view of the car, the distance between the top of the fender well and the top of the tire almost makes it look like it's got a safari kit, and the cars are hideously dipped in chrome. The wheels are dipped in chrome. This car just screams 80s and 90s to me, and not in a good way. But yeah, Radwood, absolutely cool. I never pined for one of these. They didn't hold their value very well. I'm looking at the number, JP, without getting too far ahead of us. I'm shocked it's already there. That is, to me, really surprising. I wonder if the secret sauce is that they only build like 1,000 Spyders, and you know, this might be like one of 12 that are still on the road. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why it's worth a lot of money, because I don't see these cars having any collector value, and I don't see them being desirable or having curb appeal, even from people our age, John, that would have wanted this car might have wanted one of these cars when it was new, if we could have afforded one. Certainly I can make fun of it all day long, but in 1995, I couldn't afford to buy one new. You know what I mean? So anyway, here it goes, JP. I send it back to you. You selected the car. Great nostalgia piece. Not interested. Shocked at where it's at. It still has a day left before it closes.
Yeah, I mean, when this car came out in 95, that's the middle of the 90s, Mitsubishi came out swinging. And we always talk about, you know, young timers and how great Radwood is, and we wax nostalgic about the 80s and 90s. But let's face it, there's a lot of things about the 80s and 90s that were not good. Mullets were not good, okay? Dayglow green, everything, not good. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of Cool Ranch Doritos. Okay, those were good, but not exactly something you want to advertise that you're having for lunch. There's a lot of things about the 80s and 90s that we need to forget, and this is one of them. But Mitsubishi at the beginning of the 90s, all the Japanese cars were really going for these big sports car thing. Porsche was in the shisher. I mean, Porsche almost went out of business. Yeah, they were definitely on life support in the early 90s. And you had Nissan coming out with a 300ZX. Of course, you had the Toyota Supra. But Mitsubishi, their partnership with Chrysler Dodge, they were coming out with some really innovating stuff. This is a 4-wheel drive car. Sports car, right? Which was a big deal back then. The 300ZX and the Supra didn't have all-wheel drive. The only other sports car that had all-wheel drive was, the Porsche. And so they were really trying. I think they were one of the first Japanese auto manufacturers and just manufacturers in general that had a female CEO at the time. And she was like, we will by the year 2000, she said this in like 1990, Mitsubishi will be the most technologically advanced automobile maker in the world. And they tried. They didn't make it, but they sure as hell tried. This car, if you notice, look at that top. This is not a soft top. This is one of the first convertible hardtops. Of course, there were convertibles before that had hardtops that came on and off, but this is a collapsible hardtop. It was years later till a bunch of other, obviously Mercedes followed suit, and I think Volvo followed suit. A bunch of other companies.
Mercedes beat them to the punch on this.
Did they?
Yes.
When was
the SL 500 was doing it in the way early 90s?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That is false. I just said
it's not, because if you watch the Clint Eastwood Charlie Sheen masterpiece where they were car theft cops, the getaway was in the bad guys SL 500.
The SL 500 had a hardtop that came off.
It also you had to pay extra, but it was available with the collapsing one.
Is that true? That I'd sure like to find out if that's true. I don't think it is. See if you can look that up, Mental. I'd like to know that because I don't recall ever seeing the 2003 version of the SL 500 had a collapsible hardtop, but he's going to look that up. Either way, Mitsubishi was definitely coming out with a lot of high-tech stuff.
Yeah, they were definitely flexing their engineering muscle.
Yeah, and this car had a bunch of horsepower, but it's so heavy and just not an attractive car with a lot of whiz-bang stuff. But those air intakes and stuff like that, they actually, I think, go somewhere. I'm not entirely sure. What an ugly pig. I talked a lot about this 3000 GT. Mental, what do you think of these things? Did you find a Mercedes with a convertible hardtop?
I'm working on it, but not if we want to keep doing the show. This is a really neat car. So in Japan, it was known as the GTO. So neat little car. And it was Mitsubishi trying to keep up with the big Japanese three, who were just flexing their muscle in the supercar arena, spanking Ferraris, spanking everything out of Europe with the NSX, the Supra, and the 300. And this was a twin turbo V6, same engine as that Prowler we covered a little while back.
Is that right?
Yeah, the 6-cylinder,
really?
Not the twin turbo. Yeah. So from a technical standpoint, these things were fantastic, but also like its little brother, the Eclipse, just fraught with peril because it was so complicated and anything went wrong with it. And then they, as a kind of a gasping for air, they introduced this retractable hardtop, which it's great. And having said all of this stuff, if I walked into any Mitsubishi dealer today, this is probably the only thing I want. I mean, in the country, because Mitsubishi, you talk about falling off, but this was right in the middle of their domination of rally with the Evos between them and Subaru. This was just this. So it was their entry into the supercar field. And it was cool. If you remember playing Gran Turismo, the GTO was one of the cars to have.
Yeah. Remember also they came out with they had the inexpensive, what was the Eclipse? SR, what was it had a weird name.
Yeah, the little hatchback.
Yeah, but then they had the all-wheel drive turbo one.
GSR. Yeah,
GSR. Yeah, right. The Eclipse GSR, and then what was the Chrysler version?
The Eagle Talon.
The Eagle Talon. Yeah.
Well, they had the Eagle Talon, and then the Plymouth Laser, but the Laser wasn't available with like the super hot version.
Eagle Talon TSI.
Yeah, because Eagle was a division of Chrysler that eventually went away.
The TSI, that's right. Yeah, and of course the Evo Mitsubishi little box, car. Look, Mitsubishi tried. They swung for the fences. You got to hand it to them, but they swung and they missed. Everyone else kind of kicked their butt. I think the fact that SUVs were such a big deal in this time too really hurt them because Mitsubishi didn't really have a strong SUV at the time.
Now it's all they make.
Yeah, now it's all they make. But at the time, they were, they didn't have that car. Because look, if you're going to develop a sports car, you got to be able to sell bread and butter cars. You got to be selling Sentras and Nissan was selling, or they were selling Pathfinders like crazy. That was just so they had lots of money to develop the 300Z, and of course Toyota with their 4Runner and Land Cruisers and stuff like that. But Mitsubishi didn't have that money. Yeah.
Let me jump in here and apologize, JP. You are correct.
Of course I am.
Mercedes introduced the retractable hardtop in 1997.
Correct, in the SLK, not the SL.
Yes.
But anyways, whatever. Enough about that. What do we think this thing's going to bring? Michael Deeb, go for it.
JP, it's really interesting. The guy's got the window sticker. The base price of this car was $64,449. Destination charge was $975. The grand total on the Monroney was $65,424.
Wow.
There were no options available on the car. If you wanted one, you just picked the effing color. That's it. They only came one way. Man, have times changed. What a trip. As a guy who grew up in the restaurant business, anytime I look at like old menus from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like my dad's got a whole collection of them and stuff, to see what things used to cost is just a crack up. But like for us, JP, to look at an old window sticker and see no options on that page, like you guys are missing out on a ton of profit here. That is absolutely hilarious. As I mentioned, JP, our car is sitting at a very high number. It closes tomorrow, and it's already up to $43,000. I would have thought all the money for this thing would have been $45,000, but it's got 17 bids and a day to go. I'm just gonna say it. I think this car is gonna go $50,000. I don't think it's worth that, but I think somebody's gonna spend that on it. No matter how dumb I think that is, I still think it's going to happen. So please make sure I'm not attaching myself to that bid. I just think I'm just predicting the future here. I think this car is worth it. A little bit like my partner here. If you offered me the car, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want one. So what was your bid? It was
$50,000.
$50,000. I think it's going. Yeah. It's 43, and it's still got a day to go.
But it's only 17 bids. You think they're all waiting to jump on it?
I think they are. Look, this is a rare car. I mean, there's just not many of them. Are there really that many people? I don't know. What was the original MSRP?
$65,424.
I am giving it. I'm giving it $64,000. I'm doing.
No, you're an idiot.
It's bringing its original retail coming out. Oh, it's going to suck for you so bad when I win this one. Mental, go ahead.
Don't do that, John.
Damn it.
You are so bad.
I don't want this car to cost as much. Okay, that Ranchero should be twice as much as this thing is worth because it is infinitely cooler and more usable.
You're definitely getting fingered more in the 3000 GT. And you can put the top up.
You could put a mattress in the back of a Ranchero.
The only person that's fingering Mental in the Mitsubishi is the guy.
I didn't say it was a girl. I just like
or the guy who bid.
Mental's the one getting fingered. That's my point. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say $48,000, and it's just being sold to another Mitsubishi dealer to suck somebody in to lease an Eclipse.
To put on their showroom.
To lease an Eclipse Across at 37% interest for the next 17 years.
If you would ask me, go ahead.
This car is on the showroom floor. I implore the new owner when he gets it to find out if the cigarette lighter is still there and the manuals are missing and there's only one key. Like, this car is so back a book. This is terrible.
If you had asked me yesterday before, I noticed that this thing was listed at a Mitsubishi dealership, I'd have been like, are there Mitsubishi dealerships? Do they sell? Are they still around in America? I'm not even entirely sure. I think they make TVs and stereos and stuff like that now. That's it. They always did. But anyways, White Bear. All right. So we got one more car, and then we will wrap it up. What do you guys think this Mitsubishi will bring? Let us know in the comments below. And Michael Deeb, what's the last car of the night?
So our friend Yuri is currently sitting on the beach in the Philippines, enjoying his life immensely. Yet he can't let go of the show. He was implored to continue searching for interesting cars on all the automotive platforms and then submitting those cars to the Bid Nerds. Yuri has found for us on PCAR Market a 1971 Porsche 911 Coupe that has been sort of resto modded with a 3-liter engine. Actually, a very attractive little car. Because it still seems to me there's a lot of the early car left in it. It doesn't look like they did an RSR build, which we have covered several of over the last, I would say, year and a half. This car, I think at a glance, would just look like kind of a little souped up, maybe Carrera hipped, standard long hood car. And I think the donor car was a T, but the 3-liter motor is a built motor. And I bet this thing is a hoot to drive. Really nice car. I love the colorway of it. I love how it's been modified, but somehow it's been sort of restrained, if that makes any sense to you. There's a great shot the artist took of himself. But anyway, really cool car. Bilstein suspension. It's got some headers on it. Lots of upgrades, lots of motor, lots of fun without being one of these pretentious RSR builds or trying to pretend it's something it's not. So I didn't expect to look at the pictures on this and kind of like what I see, but I do. The only thing I don't like is the steering wheel. You got to put a Pro Tipo on there, pal. Come on, get with the program. I don't really like the whole humidor brown leather interior, but it kind of works on this car. I would probably change it if it were mine, but I don't know. There's something about this car. I like the way it sits. It looks like it would be really fun, and I love the 3-liter motor. And how much more fun would it be in a much more lighter platform? So, JP, I sent it over to you. As you peruse the photos, what jumps out at you? It doesn't have big, crazy buckets. It doesn't have crazy, oversized wheels, but it doesn't look cheaply done either. What's your opinion? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're so used to seeing backdated cars. So we're used to looking at, Carreras that already have the fenders and everything like that. And there's a certain something about the backdated cars, the hot rods that we see so often. This one has that, 70s. It has the chrome window stripping and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, yeah, this is an actually old car with a bigger with a 3-liter in it rather than, just an SC that's made to look like a 71. So yeah, do I like it? Yeah. Do I like the color? Do I like just about everything I like, but I don't love this car. It's like, this is just, man, if you've been to any Porsche thing, it's like, it's missing something. I don't know what it is. Maybe the wheels are too big. Maybe it's the offset isn't quite right. Maybe the stance is just not, when you look at the 3/4 picture from behind, how big are these wheels? Are these 15-inch wheels?
15s. They look like 15s.
Yeah, they look like 15s because they got a bunch of sidewall, but they don't fit in that fender right. They need 10, 20 millimeter spacers to get it back out because the right eye looks right, yet it doesn't. It's just, I don't know. The car needs to be brought down a little bit and just, it's missing something. What do you think, Mental?
I like it. I like that it's.
Oh yeah, that's a hot take. Thanks. All right, what do we think?
No. So no, it's
Mental likes it. Okay.
No. I like the stance on it. I hear what you're saying about the style wise of it, and everything you're saying is okay, right up, and I'm in agreement until you say, and I don't like it. And I look at it, I'm like, yeah, this car is absolutely begging me to just flog it. This does not want to be rubbed with a diaper and put in a garage. It wants to be, wants its hair pulled a little bit.
In which transmission? This is the 901? This wouldn't be a 915 yet. It does have a 915. Okay. So that was added to it.
915. The 915 probably came with the motor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with the powertrain. So it's not an original 915. This one has a roll bar too. So it's
bolted. It's a bolt-in roll bar, which it's a little bit poserific, but I hear you.
But it'll still add some rigidity. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deeb.
Listen to this, Mental. So this car was purchased and put together by a factory Mercedes-Benz technician who was also a test driver at the Spa racetrack. And he built this car for himself. So those are real Recaros. It's a built motor and the 915. And I just, knowing that the guy literally spend his time professionally driving on a racetrack, I feel like the suspension on this car is probably set up pretty well. Maybe JP, the car would look better if it sat lower, but I have a sneaky suspicion this car probably can hold the road, better than most cars, because it seems like it might have been developed by somebody who really knew what he was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and in having that extra clearance does help when you're, carving out the back roads, especially if you're in a place like Northern California where there's ruts everywhere. I've definitely experienced that. I'm with you, Mental. This is definitely a car that looks like it'd be absolutely fun to drive, and maybe I just need to get over it. Maybe I'm just...
you guys, well, maybe you're burned out on these artsy Porsches, but this picture right here. So is this the CIS on this 3-liter, or is this something different? I should be smart enough to know, but I don't.
Yeah, that looks like the right one.
Because that was so that's actually one of the observations from our man up in Idaho, is that if they left the CIS on it, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, to go through the trouble, right? What about that stereo from 1991? That is just terrible. That's an atrocity. You got all this cool stuff in the interior, and then that's what you're going to run, a Panasonic something? I don't know, whatever. Who cares? All right, what do we think this thing's going to bring? It's at $75,000 already with a day and a half to go.
Yeah, so it's got 2 days before it closes, JP. It's sitting at $75,000 on 16 bids. Here's the thing. I think this is probably a $90,000, $95,000 car. I don't have faith necessarily in the PCAR market audience that this car is going to achieve a retail number. So with that in mind, John, I'm going to give you $86,000 where it just narrowly fails to sell. I do think the car is worth 90 or 95 grand, but I bet it winds up in the deal tank for $120,000. So I'll give you 86 grand on an FTS. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good call. It's definitely going to FTS. Whoever, these guys that own it definitely think it's worth more. Yeah. The PCAR market has probably, of all the platforms, been affected most by the dip. I mean, we're just not seeing solid numbers with these guys. It looks like FTSs are left and right. That's also with them, having ridiculously high reserves. A lot of times we've seen cars get the right amount of money, but with ridiculous high reserves, and then they wind up in the chum bucket over and over and over again. And, what the heck is going on with the PCAR market? It's just, you've mentioned it before, Deeb. It's all like old signs and, posters and parts and stuff like that. It's getting a little out of hand. It's like really cluttering up their site. There's almost more stuff than there is cars.
In the last, you stole my take. In the last 6 months, I actually think they have more lots of paraphernalia than they do of automobiles. I sincerely believe that. I think 55% of what they sell is non-automotive, and is all memorabilia or paraphernalia. It's all weird stuff. They're selling crap models and signs up the wazoo. It's just they are a rummage sale. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, just join us at the Toy and Lit Show in LA and hang out instead of screwing around.
Are we still getting a table or what? Come on, man.
Yeah, we got to talk about that offline, but I think we might have to have a display at the Toy and Lit Show in LA coming up on the 24th of February. That's just next month. All right. What was your bid again on this thing? You said what?
86,000.
86, and it doesn't sell. Yeah, gosh, shucks. I'm gonna where's it at now? God, that's a good bid.
75 with 2 days to go.
Does it bring another 10 grand? I'm going to go underneath you. I'm going to say 85,911 and hand it off to Mental.
Wow. Thanks for the $9, JP. 89
I'm parking it right. Dude, you stole my thunder. What am I going to do?
Yeah. Oh, what's that? Oh, JP just bumped into me.
No airbags, man. No airbags. That's just Mental getting fingered. I wasn't paying attention.
94,911 fails to sell. And I literally think every bid coming through the Bid Nerds, or not every one of them, but 80% of the Bid Nerds are all saying failed to sell.
Yeah, I mean, PCAR market should
PCAR
change
market,
to FTS market.
When you want your car online, but you really don't want to sell it.
Right. I mean, just go to Facebook Marketplace if it wasn't costing the buyer 5%.
Yeah. JP, what percentage of the Porsches that don't sell on PCAR market are just husbands trying to appease their wife. Honey, I tried to sell the car.
They are your platform for the fake sale. That is for sure.
Yeah, totally.
I actually got texted by a buddy down in Florida before the show started tonight. And he's like, referencing the winter dip. And he goes, sure, because this time of year, they don't need to launder their money in cars. They can just give it as gifts.
That's true.
That's the show, JP.
Yeah, what do you guys think this little 911 will bring? Let us know in the comments below. Can PCAR Market make it happen, or will it wind up in the chum bucket? Let's find out on the next episode. And that's a show for tonight. The Nerd Herd rocks it. Michael Deeb, are you still slinging cars for Haggerty? If I want to sling my car, how do I do it?
Yeah, you can email me direct at mdeeb@haggerty.com. And let me know if you have a car that I could potentially help you to list on our live online auction, Haggerty Marketplace. And we also are taking consignments. We have like 5 minutes left to take consignments for Amelia Island in March. But it's never too soon to start talking about a really special car for Monterey in August. So let me know if you have something interesting and you are kicking around the idea. The advice is free, and we can see where we go from there. Thank you.
And Mental, how can we find your podcast?
So we are Everyone Racers. Every Thursday, there'll be a show out. So this coming week, we are going to be talking about, inspired by my new project, Honda, the Project Car Investigation Team. What do you do when you get handed someone's fourth generation non-running bucket? What are some steps you can take? So you can find us over on that. And I will be here this Wednesday, but next Sunday, I will not be joining the Nerd Herd because I'm going to be in San Francisco hanging out with the Deeb at Cars und Cafe.
Very nice. All right. On the next episode, we have Paul from Auto Kennel will be joining us on Wednesday, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah. We got
this
Paul
Wednesday.
from Auto Kennel. Yeah. And then possibly next Wednesday or one of the upcoming shows, we're going to have, I think it's not too early to start talking about, we're going to have Pete Stout, co-founder of 000 Magazine. For all you Porsche nerds, Pete Stout is a really, really cool car guy, and he rocks a 914. We really got to introduce Pete Stout to Matt Weitzel if they don't know each other already. We have to figure that out. But yeah, Pete's a great guy, and I keep running into him now that I'm up in Marin. So I begged him to come on the show, and he agreed to do it if I would stop talking to him. I think that's the deal we made. So anyway, yeah, we're going to have Pete Stout from 000 Magazine. Cool guy.
New
by
film.
The way,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, by the way, Pete had a photographer come out and shoot him driving his 914, his four-cylinder 914. And there's a photograph of Pete in the 914 in Marin County that is adorning the current cover of Christophorus magazine. How dope is that?
Wow.
It's a really great shot, JP. We'll have to look that up for next episode and show it. We'll get Mental to put it on the air. It's a really great photograph.
Speaking of good shots, it looks like there's something on the side of my nose, but there isn't. That's weird. All right, new films coming out on Der Fascination every Monday for the next few months, so definitely check those out. And we will see you guys Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Nerd Herd.
Hey, real quick, tell everybody to give us a like on the way out because the Nerd Herd is doing it as they are leaving.
Yeah,
yes.
Don't leave yet if you haven't hit the thumbs up. So do that, then leave. Thanks, guys. All right, see you Wednesday, 6:30.
Get those nerds!